Emily stood outside the glowing windows of La Fontaine, one of the fanciest restaurants in the city. She adjusted her navy blue dress for the 5th time, smoothing down the fabric that clung too closely to her nervous hands. She wasn't used to places like this. Most of her evenings were spent curled up with a book or working late at the office, her life neatly divided between responsibilities and small, quiet comforts. Tonight, however, was different. Tonight, her coworkers had convinced her to go on a blind date. "You deserve this, Emily," her colleague Anna had said, almost pushing her toward the idea. "We've set you up with someone really special. Trust us." Emily wanted to believe them. At 32, she had stopped expecting miracles, but the tiny hope for companionship still lived in her heart. She told herself this wasn't about romance, it was about stepping outside her comfort zone, about proving she could do more than just crunch numbers at her desk. Taking a deep breath, she walked inside. The restaurant buzzed with warm laughter, clinking glasses, and the hum of soft jazz music. She gave her name to the hostess, who led her toward a table in the center of the room. There, sitting with perfect posture and an aura of power, was a man in a tailored charcoal suit. Emily froze for a heartbeat. His presence was magnetic. Sharp features, hair styled with precision, and eyes that seemed to hold the weight of authority. He was nothing like what she had pictured. This was no ordinary man. "Hi, are you Daniel?" she asked softly, her voice catching. The man looked up from his phone, clearly caught off guard. For a moment, his brows furrowed as if trying to place her. But then his expression softened. "Yes, and you must be Emily." She smiled, relieved. She sat across from him, careful not to knock over the crystal glassware. "Sorry I'm late," she said nervously, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "Traffic was." "Don't worry," Daniel interrupted gently, sliding his phone aside. His voice was deep, steady, and unexpectedly kind. "I just got here myself." Emily relaxed slightly, though the butterflies in her stomach refused to settle. The waiter approached, pouring wine. Daniel ordered with the ease of someone used to expensive menus, while Emily nodded along, grateful he had taken charge. She glanced around, and her stomach twisted. At a table not too far behind, she spotted a group of her coworkers. Anna, Mark, and Sarah sat half-hidden behind their menus, stifling laughter. Her chest tightened. Why were they here? Emily pushed the thought away, focusing on Daniel. They began to talk, first about small things, her job as an analyst, his work running his company. She didn't know exactly who he was, but the way the staff treated him, the way people glanced in his direction, told her he was someone important. As the conversation deepened, Emily relaxed. She told him about her love for books, how she collected old editions from flea markets, and her dream of opening a small community library someday. To her surprise, Daniel listened intently, leaning forward with genuine interest. "Most people I meet," he admitted, swirling his glass of wine, "talk about money, influence, or connections. But you're talking about giving children a place to read." Emily blushed, laughing nervously. "I guess I'm not very exciting." "I disagree," Daniel said, his gaze steady. "You're refreshing." Her heart fluttered at the sincerity in his tone. For once, someone wasn't judging her for being quiet, for blending into the background. But across the room, her coworkers whispered and giggled, throwing glances her way. Emily tried to ignore them, but doubt crept in. Was this really a date? Or had they? No. She shook her head. She didn't want to think the worst. Still, Daniel noticed the shift in her expression. His eyes flicked briefly toward the group behind her. The subtle smirks, the way they watched, his sharp mind caught it instantly. He had seen this before. Cruelty disguised as humor. He pieced it together. Emily had been set up. Anger tightened his chest. But when he looked at her again, nervously fiddling with her fork, he saw only kindness and vulnerability. She had no idea what was happening. "So, Emily," he said softly, steering the conversation back to her, "do you always let other people pick your adventures?" She blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean?" "This date," he clarified with a faint smile. "Was it your choice, or theirs?" He nodded subtly toward the table behind her. Emily's face burned as realization hit her. She dared a glance and saw Anna grinning like a cat who had caught a mouse. The truth slammed into her like a wave. They hadn't set her up with someone special. They had set her up as a joke. Her hands trembled, shame washing over her. She wanted to run, to disappear before he could laugh too. But Daniel didn't laugh. Instead, his gaze softened. "Don't look at them," he said firmly. "Look at me." Emily's eyes snapped back to his. "They don't matter," he continued. "I do. And I think you're remarkable." Her breath hitched. No one had ever spoken to her like that. The dinner continued, but something had shifted. Emily spoke with more caution now, afraid of saying the wrong thing, while Daniel listened even more intently, determined to shield her from the humiliation brewing around them. When dessert arrived, a delicate chocolate soufflé, Daniel leaned back, eyes flicking once more to the group of pranksters. Their whispers had grown bolder, their amusement crueler. He clenched his jaw, anger simmering. He could expose them. He could walk away, but neither option felt right. No. This woman, this quiet soul who had walked into a lion's den with nothing but her dignity, deserved something more. Something that would silence their mockery forever. And in that moment, Daniel decided. He would turn their joke into a scene none of them would ever forget. The restaurant was alive with the clinking of glasses and the hum of conversation, but at Emily and Daniel's table, a heavy silence hung in the air. Daniel had just made up his mind. He wouldn't let those smug faces at the back of the room win. Not tonight. Not at her expense. Emily, blissfully unaware of his decision, dabbed at her lips with her napkin. "Thank you for dinner, Daniel. I know I'm not really your type. You don't have to pretend." Her words sliced into him. She had felt the sting of their laughter. She thought she was the joke. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "Emily, stop. Don't ever say you're not enough. If anything, you're more than enough." Her cheeks flushed, but before she could respond, he rose from his seat. The scrape of his chair echoed through the restaurant, drawing attention. Emily blinked up at him, startled. "Daniel, what are you?" He extended his hand. "Stand with me." Confused, she hesitated. Around them, whispers began to stir. The group of coworkers watched eagerly, leaning forward, their expressions smug. They expected the grand reveal, the punchline. They thought Daniel was about to expose the prank and walk away, leaving Emily humiliated in the spotlight. But that wasn't what happened. When Emily placed her trembling hand in his, Daniel turned to face the room. With a deliberate calmness, he knelt down on one knee. Gasps rippled like waves across the restaurant. The laughter from the back table died instantly. Phones were lifted, screens glowing as customers began recording what they thought was about to become a viral moment. Emily's heart thundered in her chest. She tried to pull her hand back, her voice breaking. "Daniel, what are you doing? Get up, please." He shook his head, tightening his hold on her hand. His deep voice carried across the room, commanding and clear. "From the moment you sat down, Emily, I saw something rare. In a world full of masks and false smiles, you came to this table with honesty, with kindness. You spoke about your dreams. Not money, not power, not status. Do you know how rare that is for someone like me to find?" Her coworkers stared, their faces paling with every word. This wasn't humiliation. This wasn't mockery. This was something else entirely. Daniel continued, his voice rich with conviction. "What matters in life isn't the wealth we flaunt or the titles we hold, it's the people we choose to stand beside. And I know, without hesitation, that I want to stand beside you." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her knees felt weak, tears welling in her eyes. This couldn't be real. No one had ever defended her like this, much less a man who seemed untouchable, powerful, out of reach. "Emily," Daniel said, his eyes locked on hers as though the entire world had melted away, "will you give me the honor of not just sharing this night with you, but of being the woman I get to know for the rest of my life?" The restaurant erupted into a flurry of reactions, gasps, cheers, clapping. Some guests shouted encouragement, others simply stared in awe. Emily, overwhelmed, covered her mouth with her free hand. "Daniel, this is crazy. You don't even know me." "I know enough," he said softly, rising slightly but keeping his gaze steady. "And I want to know the rest. Every detail, every dream, every scar. I don't want this to end tonight." Her coworkers exchanged horrified glances. Anna's smirk was gone, replaced with panic. Mark muttered, "This wasn't supposed to happen." Sarah bit her lip, realizing their cruel game had backfired spectacularly. Emily trembled, her tears spilling over. I don't know what to say. Say yes, Daniel urged, his voice gentle now, stripped of all the CEO authority that once intimidated people. Say yes, and let me prove to you that you're worth far more than the lies they've made you believe. The room went still, waiting. Emily's heart raced. Part of her screamed this was madness. Too fast, too public, too impossible. But another part, the part that had been starved of kindness and respect for so long, whispered that this was her chance. Her lips quivered. She whispered the word before she even realized it had left her mouth. Yes. The restaurant exploded into applause. Strangers rose to their feet, clapping and cheering. Daniel stood, pulling her into his arms, holding her close as though shielding her from the world. Cameras flashed, videos captured every second, but to Emily, it felt like there was only him. Are you sure? She whispered into his chest, her voice trembling. I've never been more sure of anything, he murmured back. Behind them, the coworkers sat frozen, humiliated in the very trap they had laid. Anna's face burned red as people glared in their direction, realizing they had been the ones mocking the woman now embraced by the city's most powerful man. Daniel, still holding Emily's hand, turned his piercing gaze toward them. For those who thought this was a joke, he said, his voice cutting through the applause, let me make it clear. The only joke here is how blind you've been to see the worth of a woman like her. The silence that followed was sharper than any blade. Anna sank in her chair, wishing she could disappear. Emily pulled back slightly, her tears replaced by something stronger, pride. For the first time in her life, she felt seen. Not for what she wasn't, but for everything she was. Daniel leaned down, brushing a tear from her cheek. Let them watch, he whispered. Let them see what happens when a woman like you is finally valued the way she deserves. The night that had begun as a cruel prank ended as a story that would be told again and again. Strangers would leave that restaurant saying they had witnessed something extraordinary. Videos would circulate online, turning Emily's tearful smile into an emblem of hope. But for Emily and Daniel, none of that mattered. All that mattered was the truth written in his eyes and the courage in her voice when she said yes. For Emily, the joke had transformed into a miracle. For Daniel, the unexpected blind date had turned into the most important decision of his life. And for everyone else watching, it was a lesson they would never forget. Sometimes, the quietest woman in the room is the one who deserves the loudest love.